Hi, this is Reg Athwal and welcome to our channel. I've got some exciting news today. As you know, for those of you who are regular viewers of our shows, we've got many themes that are on our channel, but I've been wanting to do this for a while. I've been wanting to launch Family Business Soul. And today is the day. I've got a great guest, great friend, someone who's an expert, especially when it comes to the spiritual aspects of our lives. And it's only fair that I give you a formal introduction for him. So welcoming in a few minutes Prash to our show. He is an international well-being and empowerment expert. He's a consultant and an international speaker who also hosts the 5-star rated podcast show. You've got to check it out. I'll make sure all the details are in the link in the description area for you, of urban spirituality. And he's also the CEO, you can see on the screen there, of StressToSuccess. He's worked with global corporations around the world and also with different communities to do with spiritual aspects, dealing with spiritual organizations over 25 years now. And he's reached tens of thousands of people globally through his podcast, events, and retreats. Prash's long-lasting experience in well-being practices, spiritual growth, peak performance, and emotional intelligence has resulted in a unique style of coaching. As well as that, in training and consulting, and he blends this all together for an unconventional wisdom style in real world pragmatism, well-being guy mixed with urban spiritualism and all the rest of it. Welcome, Prash, to the show. I don't know how else I can introduce you apart from, I can't keep up with it. The well-being guy, the urban spiritualist in action, dealing with clients all over the world. How do you, welcome to the show first of all, how do you end up putting this all together?
Very good question, Reg. What I like to think of it as is, for those of you who are familiar with that dish from India, the famous signature dish of India, khichdi.
Yep.
And khichdi, for those of you who may not be familiar, is the signature Indian dish, which is a meal in a pot. It combines all these diverse ingredients that you blend together and create this delicious fusion that's always unique each time you create it, and every person creates it differently. Everybody has their own spin, and yet when you have it, it feels it hits the mark. It's satisfying. And so for me, I like to see my world and my offering to the world as a khichdi, a spiritual khichdi, if you will. It's taking all these individual elements that I've had the privilege of learning, along with all of life's hard knocks, and then taking the strategies that I've learned and fusing them together to offer it to people with love, with integrity, to help them in their life. And some is more spiritual, some is more emotional,
So can I ask you, Prash, thanks for setting the stage for us. Well-being, you're known as the well-being guy. You're also the CEO of a company as well. But just touching on the well-being side, what does that really mean? And I always ask myself, anything I hear in the world, doesn't matter what it is, I ask myself, think of it on my forehead, I've got written, so what? So what does it mean? Well-being, it's a word used by so many people, and for some people it's very general, but in your world I know it's very, very different. Talk us through, what does it really mean?
Well, firstly, it's good to, and it's a great question, it's good to understand that there is a distinction between well-being and wellness. The terms are generally used interchangeably, but actually there's a distinction. Wellness is generally associated with our physical state of wellness, our physical state of well-being, how well we are physically in terms of our fitness and our general physical health. Although it's used with mental wellness as well, it's generally confined to that area of our being. Well-being, on the other hand, and if I flip it on its other side, is all about being well. And really, well-being, therefore, is a much more holistic look at an individual across what I call, and in my coaching methodology, in our training programs, we refer to it as the 5 pillars. So the 5 pillars of well-being are physical, mental, emotional, behavioral, and spiritual. And so each of these areas has an aspect of well-being and wellness, and there is a approach that helps us to take us from a hellish situation in each of those areas to a more heavenly or desirable situation in each one. And therefore well-being becomes the art of balancing those areas and bringing balance and constantly and dynamically paying attention to one over the other as we just move through life and through our career.
That's a good explanation to well-being. Can I ask you, with those different elements, you mentioned the word balance. Can one really achieve balance in all those areas, or is life just a constant juggling act where one area we're celebrating and another area we're neglecting?
You know, it's an excellent question. There was once a great speaker who had somebody stand on one leg, and they said walk with your eyes closed, and they kind of started walking off one leg, and they realized that they were easily losing their balance. And the moral of that demonstration was that no matter how hard you try, you can't always find balance. What we're talking about is not static balance. We're talking about dynamic balance. We're talking about the ability to be able to switch from one leg to the other, from each of the pillars as life's demands throw at us. And that means, just by nature of our life, that our bandwidth, our physical, emotional, financial, for some of us, bandwidths are always limited. Our willpower is also of a finite capacity. So because we have limited bandwidth and capacity in each of these areas, the art of well-being is therefore the art of learning to dynamically direct that bandwidth to the area or one of those 5 pillars which needs it the most at any given point in time, and then switching from one to the other.
Could you give us an example of how that shows up? Let's say you've got an executive or a business owner. In our case, we're dealing with lots of entrepreneurs, family business owners, and their next generation extended family. So when you talk about this balance and the examples you've just given, can you tell us about something that you've witnessed in the past where someone could be running a business or owning a company, and when you're going through these elements, what have you noticed as some sort of common pattern with people at that level?
Yeah, very good question. Let me give you an example, or 2 examples that illustrate this point. Right now, in fact, I'm working with a client who is a VP in a big organization. He also is the CEO of his own company, in a separate company based out in Seattle. Now, he's in his late 40s and his health has started to take a dip. It's because of the stress of the 2 businesses that he's involved with, and it's keeping him up. He's got late nights. And so because of that level of stress, his performance at work has started to suffer. Both his business and his employment are suffering. And he's now having to revisit the amount of work that he's got on. But unfortunately, not only is his stress causing his performance to suffer, but it's also causing a certain type of relational disjoint in his family, because he's snapping at his family, he's snapping at his children. So there's a certain side coming up. Now, as a result of that, we're looking at working with him in 2 areas. We're going to be looking in the area of, out of those 5 pillars, we're looking at the behavioral pillar, because there's certain things that are happening in his life that are triggering him to behave in a certain way. So what we need to do is look at the habits and the behaviors that are triggering him and look to mitigate those situations that cause those triggers to cause him to react, to snap, to behave in that certain way. So that's one pillar. Another pillar we're having to hone in on is we're having to look at his physical pillar and look at his physical health. And again, we combine those 2 pillars to see how the habits are affecting his physical health and well-being, and what we can do for a busy guy who doesn't really want to exercise, who doesn't have the time. What do we need to do? It becomes a mindset shift, Reg. And so therefore, invariably, in this example here, we're having to take this person, recognize that he's got 15, 16 hours a day, and look to strategize how we can inject healthy, well-being, fitness protocols that can actually work for him in 15 minutes a day, for example, and then looking at his habits and behaviors outside to change those. And that involves using the subconscious mind. It involves listening to talks or audios, affirmations. So we take strategies according to the individual's appetite and their aptitude and their attitude. A simple, completely different example. I have a female client of mine. She's a lawyer. She's very successful. At the moment, she's having a difficult time with her relationships. And by that, I mean with her colleagues and co-workers, and she has a difficult situation with her child, who's 5 or 6, and there's some challenges going on. So what we're working on is her emotional state. So out of those 5 pillars, now for her, it's the triggers that are causing her to come up with certain emotions that are then being a detriment to the performance of her work and how it is with her family. So we're looking at the emotional triggers, we're looking at certain aspects of emotional intelligence, and we'll look to see how we can use strategies to improve her behavioral self-control, her personal self-power, her emotional self-regulation. So these are areas that we can use strategies to start to get her to have control again through the situation and move from a situation of reacting to responding to the situation.
Right. Is this simple? Is this a simple process, or is it complicated? Does it take a long time to create transformation for someone? Another question popping in my head right now is, do you really need an external person to do this with you? Why can't people figure it out themselves?
I like that. I think that's a very good question. I think the person who could best answer that is probably the person interviewing me right now. You have a large list of respectable, successful business owners and entrepreneurs across the world who theoretically have lived and experienced many decades of powerful experience in the commercial and business world and seen life, and therefore by rights should be able to navigate their business growth by themselves. But of course they are looking to reach with excellent coaches and consultants like yourself and your team to work with them. The fact of the matter is this: many of us have the knowledge that we have, just like somebody who wants to get fit. They can read all the internet, they can go and research everything they want and have the routines. But it's the actual delivery, it's the customizing of that work, and it's the accountability and the training, it's the obstacle management, it's those factors that make the difference, and which is why a coach or a consultant is a great guide to have. And later on, now we're going to talk about spirituality. We can talk about the concept of a guru or a guide or a spiritual teacher. This is not new, Reggie. Obviously, you know this has been a tradition thousands of years old. So to answer that part of the question, I think it's very beneficial to have somebody who you can work with and who can hold you accountable. And then to the part that you said, is it easier or is it complex? You know what? We're humans. We're complex creatures. There's no doubt about that. But what we have as a ray of light, each and every single one of us have the ray of light, which is that with the right guidance, we're able to go and find those answers within ourselves. And that's the right kind of coaching that people should look to find in somebody, whether it's in business coaching or personal coaching, to find that person who helps you to be able to draw out the answers within yourself and discover hidden gems within yourself. And then you can those things can be added to with tools and techniques along the way.
I get it. No, I'm with you on that. I'm just trying to understand, like, obviously with our experience, we deal with a lot of family businesses across Africa, Middle East, South Asia, which will be different. Anyone who's watching this now is an entrepreneur or a family business owner, let's say in the Western world. Spirituality may have different meaning, and also the cultural aspects of our part of the world where people, many clients I can think of that have a guru that they go to on a spiritual level, or the spiritual and religious rituals that happen every day or every week as a family that bring them together. But when you talk about urban spirituality, it's not necessarily religion, is it? Could you talk us through that, of what are the elements which are impact every single human being in the world, but it's not to do with religion?
Yeah, so true. And that's why I coined that phrase, urban spirituality, because on the one hand, there is religion, a set of practices, rituals, rules, and regulations by which one may conduct their life, with a path towards building that relationship with their creator, whether that creator is called Allah, Buddha, Jehovah, Krishna, so on and so forth. And that is the religious traditions of this planet. Spirituality, on the other hand, is not contradictory to religion. It is the underlying universal principles that govern all thought, behavior, wisdom, and intellect. It is that spirituality that unites all of us, because whether we're humans or not, we share certain core characteristics of growth, development, emaciation, reproduction, old age, dwindling, and ultimately death. These are characteristics common to not only humans, but to all creatures. And therefore, what we talk about here is our connectedness with all creatures. And those are the universal principles that I'm referring to. Connection with all things, connection with this universe. Our ability to be able to unite our mind, our body, and our spirit in ways that are conducive to us and the people around us. And those are completely agnostic of the religious affiliations or choices a person chooses to have or not have. And those are the governing principles that I think unite all of us. And if we can tap into that, and I call it urban spirituality, Reg, because I feel that spirituality has had a bad rap with a lot of people, and yet it governs the very air we breathe. We all have some sort of spirituality about us. The very fact that we have a purpose in our life, or the very fact that we have a desire to accomplish something. Fundamentally, let's forget religion for a second. Every single human being is trying to do two things: seek happiness and fulfillment, and move away from pain and suffering. We all want that.
Can I ask you
what spirituality does?
Purpose and meaningful. Another thing pops up for me, sorry to interrupt you, would be, we talk about fulfillment, meaningful life, but then there's a lot of people out there which is, well, I want more money in my life. And they're torn between something that's calling them inside to say, hey, this is what you should be doing, or this is how you could be fulfilled, this would be meaningful work for me. But then there's something over here which is paying the bills, or whatever. It could be maybe the person joined their family business because it's a legacy business, but they've got no passion for that manufacturing plant or what that family business is doing. What's your thoughts around some of these things? Meaningful fulfillment work versus chasing the money. More money in my life. Got to pay the bills. Keep a roof over my head. I hear these stories so many times with first generation entrepreneurs that are maybe starting off.
I think that's a very good question. I give this example that a fish cannot be happy in water, and a lion cannot be happy inside the ocean. That is to say, we all have a dharma. And let me use this phrase dharma because this is, we're talking about the soul, and this is the theme of this episode. Dharma, which is a Sanskrit word, comes from the Sanskrit word root dri, and dri is the essence of something. So dharma is about what the essence of a person is. And the dharma of a person isn't to do with their religious affiliation, it's to do with their essential nature, their essential affinity and what they are and how they show up in the world. We all have a certain dharma. We may not recognize it or know it at the beginning of our life, but as life moves on, we get to uncover what that dharma is, and there are processes to help us do that. That dharma, that tendency that we have, our essence, is what allows us to ascertain what would make us inspired and passionate and what we would want to embrace as a career or a business versus what we wouldn't want to do. And that's why we find a lot of people who are dissatisfied in their parental business or don't want to show up because it's going against their dharma. It's going against their essential makeup. And what they have done is they're going along with it because of societal conditioning, because of paradigms. And there's a thing called paradigms that I teach in our trainings. And those paradigms are the collective views, opinions, criticisms, ideas, suggestions, instructions, programming that we've received from childhood, from our parents, from our family members, from society, from media, from companies we've worked at. All these form paradigms as we grow up. And many of us as adults now are being controlled by these invisible paradigms that we acquired unavoidably. And no blame to anybody, but we acquired these paradigms as we grew up. Now we're filled with a whole bunch of paradigms that say you must be successful only if you're an engineer. You will only be successful, watch this, you'll only be successful if you have a certain amount of money in your bank account. You'll only consider yourself, I'll only be successful if I've got a Mercedes and a fancy house in the UAE. Otherwise I'm not successful. Wait a second, where did that come from? You think that this is important to you. Is it though? Or is it actually a paradigm or a program that started way back there that's now ruling your life and driving you towards physical and emotional collapse for some people and financially stretching yourself to the detriment of your spirit, to the detriment of what you truly is your dharma, because you're running away from it because you never spent time to uncover it. Am I getting too passionate here? Force me.
No, I like it. I mean, I hope our viewers and for those of you watching who like this discussion, make sure you comment as well. I love it. I love it. I think the deeper we can go, the better. I think there's plenty of interviews that I've done in the past, Prash, where people are talking about spirituality and they're only touching the surface. I'd rather go deeper. And I know when I invited you on the show, there was one thing that I really wanted to discuss that fits in with what you've just said, which is, I don't know if it's Dharma, whether that fits with karmic situation. I don't know if there's a link here. Maybe you can expand on this. But one thing that really fascinates me is if you've got a family, let's say a family of five, okay, parents and three children as an example. Each of those members of the family, as part of that family tree soul, there's genetics involved. Great. You know, there's DNA. Externally, all of them may have certain features where there's similarities, but everyone's unique. They've all got their own personalities and talents. But if we go down to the soul level, what's really going on with those five members of that same family unit, that household? Is there a karmic situation going on in that family tree soul? Is there karmic debt there, which one has to get past? I'm going to pause there because I need to get your views. You're the guest. What's your thoughts on any of the stuff I've just said?
It's a powerful subject, and a subject that can cause discomfort and fascination in equal measures. If we are to subscribe for a moment, and let's just to karma, and let's get some definitions on the table here for those of you who are in. Karma is loosely translated in English as the law of action and reaction. In the Bible, they refer to as you sow, so shall you reap. The concept of karma, according to the ancient most literatures on the planet, the Vedas, which are 8,500 years old and therefore are usually regarded as the oldest literatures known to mankind, written in the oldest language in the world, Sanskrit. Karma refers to a law that governs the universe. Not just humans, all creatures, all living entities are subject to this law. Karma postulates that all of us go through many lives. So if you were to humor me for a minute, if you're tuned in, whether you believe in past lives or not, but if we entertain the possibility that we are spiritual beings, souls, atmas, whatever you want to call it, spiritual sparks of pure consciousness that transcend this body, that we are just visitors in this vessel that we have at this present time. We have a time when we come in as a soul in a given family, and then we leave at a certain time. If we just entertain that for a minute, then we can start to understand that the dynamics that determine how we as souls end up in a given family, because of the karma that is accrued through previous lifetimes. Karma, that means it's a bank account. There's a bank balance there. It's a balance of good stuff that's done, good deeds, and not so good deeds. Then there's a net of that good and bad, and that net result determines the sort of vehicle, family, environment, prosperity level, intelligence level, physical shape of body. All of these factors, according to the classic understanding in the Vedas, are determined by the karmas of the past lives plural, that determine how we look, feel, what affluence level we have, what abilities we have in this, and what family members we are born part of. And therein is the genesis of the karmic tree for us as an individual, because we have our family members, our wives, our children. All of these individuals now are connected through a karmic chain. The karmic chain is because we had some sort of remote soul contract to come together in this life and teach each other lessons. And I love to teach this to clients, because one of the hardest things for people as human beings is to learn to forgive things that have really hurt us badly. And I'm sure some of you who are tuned in can appreciate this, whether it's a business or a personal life.
How do I get access to my karmic contract?
Access to our karmic contract, I could say to you that you could speak to some soothsayers, some astrologers, Vedic astrologers, or mystics that you may know from your tradition or your culture or your country. But I would say this. I would say meditation and introspection are two powerful tools by which you can look to uncover and glean insights into your true nature. Your dharma, your karma starts to become unveiled as you spend time going inward. The trouble is, we like to spend time going on the outside, the outer library, which is Google, which is great, and to a degree it can provide us a base of information. But the rest of that journey has to be an inner journey. It always has been. And that's where we can start to uncover that. And to bring that conversation back here to the point you said about karmic chains, we as individuals find it hard to forgive. And one of the most powerful lessons we can learn in our life to help us to forgive somebody, a loved one, especially somebody close to us who's hurt us deeply. And I have this example because I got deeply hurt by the activities that one of my close family members did, and he's passed away now, is recognizing that they have their karma to play. They came here as teachers to teach us a lesson. And when we start to recognize that the people who've hurt us, the people who annoy us, are here within our life, karmically connected with us, to teach us a lesson of some sort, that they're our teacher in some way, we can start to shift ourselves from a victim mindset and why me mindset to a what can I learn? How can I grow mindset? And that's a powerful lesson.
Can I interrupt? How do you know whether they are a teacher or not?
You know, I'll quote Socrates, who's infinitely more smarter than I am. The legendary philosopher Socrates said, every person I meet in some way or other is my superior, because I learn from, and this is how I learn from them. They are my teacher. That is to say, every single person we come across has some sort of gun, some sort of quality, some sort of something that's teaching us. It may be something that annoys the hell out of us, but then we're going to learn. So I would put that everyone, whether it's a child or an elder, is a teacher in some way for us. And it's just us to shift our mindset to a knowledge gathering mindset and a learning mindset rather than a victim mindset or a why me mindset.
So does that mean there's different beliefs on this around the world, Prash? Does that mean we are in control of the time we come in and the time we go out, or there's certain parts of the world I've traveled to and they go, no, you know, I'm not in control, it's in my destiny. It's already written for me what's going to happen. I'm just curious then, if you've got your karmic contract, you've got your family tree karmic contract, you've got all these lessons to learn. Why? What's this all about? Why?
Let me answer that one in the way I see life. If we're all eternal beings, if we can just entertain that for the duration of this interview, that we are eternal sparks of consciousness encaged within a physical body that constantly changes. We know that every 7 years it's unrecognizable. Every cell in our bodies change. Yet the person who remembered that 7-year-old body, the Reg who was there at 7 when he had his first barante filled with great masala, and the Reg who's sitting here giving me masala through his questioning, the person who remembered that is still here right now. Your physical body's changed, but the person who remembers, that hasn't changed. We as individuals are constant. So if we recognize that we are eternally unchanging sparks of spiritual consciousness occupying a body for a certain time, and when that body goes, we move on, then I would like to invite you to entertain this consideration, that this planet and other planets like it is like a university. It's a great big university. We're all students in this university. At some point in antiquity, way before this life, we will have desired to learn some lessons. Now you can say that we bit the apple in the Garden of Eden and God wants to punish us, or you can go take an entirely different view and you can say that, you know, we wanted to just experience what it's like to be independent and be godlike in our own way. Whatever spin you want to put on it, from time immemorial, we chose to be in this place, and this place is a university. If you see it as a university, then in that university you have many departments. You have departments of learning. And those departments have schools: the school of Hinduism, the school of Christianity, the school of Judaism, the school of Islam, the school of atheism, the school of science and unorthodoxy. These are all schools. And within those schools, we're able to go, study, pick knowledge. And the purpose of this entire journey is
what?
Do you stay at a university permanently? You graduate. Yeah. It's to go through this university, take the learnings and graduate. Graduate to where? Graduate to the next evolution of our life, beyond this life, to take us in a direction that ascends and evolves our soul. So my answer to that question is that this purpose of our life is to evolve, to become better, to become more knowledgeable, and to refine and understand our true self. Because guess what? It's the one thing that's going to come with us. Everything else, that every single car, every single dollar, every single bank account, and every single property that you have will be left behind to your loved ones. You, on the other hand, will go empty-handed. We've heard the saying, Red, you know this from Indian culture: we come empty-handed, we leave empty-handed. But the one thing that we will take is the evolution, that inner wisdom that we've taken, that self-realization. And therefore I put to everyone on this: see this planet as a university, and we're here as students to learn.
Well, yeah, I suppose when I leave, I mean, I'm going to look exactly the same way I came in, probably fat and bald. So it should be quite interesting on the way out. Prash, okay, there's a whole bunch of people out there that talk about evolution, moving to the next stage, and we have to fix this in this world. We need more peace and harmony and unity. I get that. So is there a contradiction here, which is, you know, in order to go on this spiritual evolution, the world is imperfect, we need to fix it? Or is it two sides of the same hand? The other side is saying, well, actually everything is already perfect. You know, you can't have good without bad. You can't have day without night. Yeah. So whatever that thing is over there that we see as horrible or bad actually is directly linked to something good that's happening at the same time. What do you think? Is there imperfection? Is there deep problems in the world today with mankind and on earth? Are we really going on a spiritual evolution journey or not? What's happening? What's your version on all this?
My take on it is a oxymoron. It is perfectly imperfect. At this one time, this world in its sense is perfect. What I mean by perfect is that everything is as it is meant to be, including the suffering. The other school is that it's imperfect, it always will be imperfect, and we're going to have to just grin and bear it. I like to see, and you hit on it very nicely, by the way, I like to see life as existence full of dualities. It is unavoidable. This existence for all creatures, not just humans, is full of dualities. Day and night, heat and cold, honor and dishonor, happiness and distress, pain and pleasure. We have these dualities. Nobody will escape the dualities. Recognizing that we are here to learn, and using that university concept allows us the opportunity to see and accept that the dualities are there. And that's where the perfection part comes. Perfection isn't necessarily seeing that everything is perfect. Perfection is taking a perfect stance about what's going on in the outside world. And that perfect stance could be, everything's going to be changing. There is always going to be duality. I'm never going to always be happy. I'm never always going to be sad. I'm going to need to embrace this flux that comes with me. So that perfect stance or outlook to the world, which is imperfect by nature, can help us to give a more robust and resilient and ultimately, I think, a happier existence throughout this journey that we're on. And I just wanted to just circle back to the point you said here. Is it all free will? Is it destiny? Are we all destined here and, you know, everything's pre-planned? So here's the thing. We're all independent creatures. Whoever created us, whatever entity created us, gave us independence. That's for damn sure, because we all have that as an ability. So here's the thing. Whilst there are multiple types or aspects of karma, there's prarabdha, sharabdha, antarabdha. These are different types of karma that are described. So there's karma of things that we've done in the past. Let me give you a great example. If you, at a younger age, robbed a bank some time ago and you got away with it in your 20s, and you're living off the life that you built from all the money that you accumulated from the bank robbery. And then somehow, somewhere, somebody who was involved in that bank robbery starts to leak it out. And the police start coming for you, the prosecutors start coming 15 years on. Now, your karma's done. You're enjoying the fruits of that karma. You stole it, you're enjoying the fruits of your robbery. But something's going to come catch up with you, and now you're going to have to do something. The choice is still yours. You can choose to run away and try and escape the FBI who are after you, or you can choose to cooperate and spend some time in prison. That is to say, when we board a train, the destination of that train from Mumbai Central to Andheri it's not going to change. It's going to go from Mumbai Central to Andheri because that's the train that's been boarded. But what you do on that train, who you speak with, how you spend your time on that train is up to you. And ultimately, what you do when you get off that train is up to you. So I would say it's a mix. That karma from the past is going to happen. And another example is like a fan. You have a fan, when you pull the plug out from that fan, it carries on spinning for a while even though the electricity is cut. It's kind of like that. We've done a whole bunch of karma in the past. It's going to have its effect, but eventually it's going to wear out. But then guess what's going to happen? The stuff that we're doing right now is going to create more karma because we have free will and choice of what we want to do. And so at every point, we can choose how our life is. Nobody's choosing it for us. We still remain the architects of our destiny. We can still choose, man.
So what's vitamin S all about? I know for those of you watching still, make sure you go to the description area for Prash. There's all details on his podcast. He's got some really good episodes on his podcast. But one of the things I know from a speaking point of view, your coaching and your training with clients, you're talking about this vitamin S. What's vitamin S? Is it? Do I buy it from the shop? Can I take one later on? Do I need 2 a day? How's it work?
I'll tell you what it's not. There's one. I was giving a talk once in London at a financial institution, and somebody asked me when I described, does anybody know what vitamin S is? And one lady in the audience, who must be a Bollywood film admirer, said, vitamin S is more of Shah Rukh Khan. She's a lover of Shah Rukh Khan. She goes, vitamin S is, I need my dose of vitamin S, Shah Rukh. Vitamin S is not that. Vitamin S refers to spirituality. It refers to that underlying essence that allows us to find happiness and fulfillment no matter how much or how little our bank account is, and no matter how popular or how unpopular we are, and no matter where we live or what state we're in. Because it comes down to this. A lot of people think that they're going to be able to find happiness by acquiring and enjoying. These are two tendencies that humans have, by the way, to acquire and to enjoy. Everybody wants to do these things, to covet and possess, and then to enjoy that which we covet and possess. No point having a bunch of money if we can't enjoy it. Everybody wants to do these two things. Unfortunately, in my opinion, too many people place too much emphasis on these two tendencies, and unfortunately there's one thing that can ruin everything. It's right here. It's the mind. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, for one who has learned to conquer the mind, it can be the best of friends. But for one who has not learned to conquer the mind, it is the worst and deadliest of enemies. And this, my friends, I'm sure you can resonate with in some way in your own life, or maybe if the lives of many of the celebrities we've seen who have amassed millions, have had fans around the world, and yet they're deeply dissatisfied, deeply unhappy, depressed, on drugs and medication. It's because the mind isn't right. And therefore it comes back to this concept of vitamin S, that we're getting every kind of physical vitamin that we need, and we're nourishing this body. But the one vitamin that we need that actually nourishes our entire existence and allows us to be happy in wealth or poverty, in any sort of circumstance, and allows us to make it through difficult times, is that vitamin S. It's that spiritual essence, and it's that recognition that we are all eternal beings, that we will have these dualities, as you said, happiness and distress, honor and dishonor, and that we need to learn to navigate this life in a way where we're not too much rocked by either side, and we're not dependent on acquiring and enjoying for our deep, true happiness because that's deep fulfillment, deep happiness, and not just temporary flickering joys of the pleasure that we get, or that's ego placating outside. Not to deny any of those things, and it's not about being rich or poor, by the way. Just to caveat this, in case you're watching this and you think you're going to have to renounce everything and go to a forest, no need. You can be, it's not about the money or the company. It's not about that. You can carry on building your business. It's about our inner state that we show up with and the purpose that drives us to do what we want to do. And that's what allows our mind to become purer, combined with techniques and tools like meditation, introspection, seva, service, helping others. And those things together help us to have a more fulfilling thing, which means we become more detached from the material things and more centered in a spiritual phase of life.
There's a lot to take on board there, Prash, and there'll be some people listening to this that go, wow, I absolutely get Prash, he's brilliant. And, you know, for those of you who really connect with Prash, definitely check his videos out online, you know, book him as your next speaker for your retreat or for your company. But Prash, for the others who are listening who have no clue really what both of us are talking about in this episode, they probably left in the first 5 minutes, or a few of them are still curious and still with us, so thumbs up. What can we leave them with? What are some of the steps? Could you give us some specific practical steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, keep it simple, of what people could do to go on this path of spirituality, enlightenment, fulfillment, happiness, and reduce all their stress, which is, I know, you know, a key part of what you've been doing for many years for corporates. So what's the steps?
Absolutely. I want to start by just giving an analogy to bring us into this position of practical steps. Imagine if you had a beautiful bird that you acquired, and with the beautiful bird you acquired a beautiful cage. Now imagine for a minute if you start to spend your time, because friends come over and they admire this incredible cage you've got, and they think it's gold plated, it's incredible, where did you get this cage? I mean, it's diamond encrusted. Imagine if you start really pimping out that cage, looking after it, and continue to look after it, and then time comes where you actually start to forget to feed the bird inside the cage, and all you're doing is just pimping this cage to make it look beautiful because everybody compliments you, and you keep getting more praise, and then you get more satisfaction from people praising you. But unfortunately the bird inside is getting malnourished and eventually dies. That, my friends, is the predicament that many of us find ourselves in, and yet many of us don't even realize that we're in. Many of us think that polishing the cage, i.e. acquiring material goods and enjoying them, living a purely material life and ascending corporate career ladders, acquiring wealth, is the be-all and end-all of life, are misled. And therefore we find that we're actually deeply dissatisfied inside our soul, because we've starved that bird inside. And so the steps that I want to share are to redress that balance, to enjoy that cage, enjoy your material life and all the wealth that you're accumulating through your hard work, and share it with your family and your friends and your co-workers. By all means do that. But also how to nourish the bird inside, which is us, our true self. I want to start with a few ideas that I'm going to leave you with. Firstly, be prepared to do an audit. Now, most of you who are tuned in are familiar with audits in your business, and you do this all the time, and you have auditors come in. I want to invite you to do a self-audit. A self-audit is a time when you turn your phones off, you go into airplane mode, just like we have on our phones. Put yourself into airplane mode, do not disturb mode, and you go through a series of questions with a little bit of a meditation at the beginning. I'm going to describe how to do it, where you can start to ask yourself some questions that start to give rise to your true dharma, your true nature, what it is your true essence is, to discover what that dharma is, and to discover by extension, of course, what your true purpose is. Not the paradigms and the programs that we've accumulated from childhood and that still run us, that have shaped our concept. It's called our self-concept. Our self-concept cuts across everything. It dictates what we choose, what we like, what we dislike, who we hang out with. Everything that we choose or make actions and decisions on is governed by our self-concept. It's our bundle of beliefs that determine how we show up in the world and what we like and what we don't like and what we regard success as. So we need to introspect and revisit our self-concept and our true purpose. And I want to invite you to do that by doing a self-audit. A self-audit is that time when you put yourself in do not disturb mode and you start with a bit of a guided meditation.
So is that step one, yeah?
Step one. Step one is to go block out some time, an hour or two, where you're not going to be disturbed. Then you want to put yourself into a state where you can go into a meditative state where you can introspect. There's a simple way to do that involving breathing, and it's going to be a type of breathing that I'm going to show you, which is called 4-step breathing. It's a square breathing. I call it the 4-step square breathing. It involves breathing in for a count of X number of seconds, let's say 4 seconds, holding our breath for a count of 4 seconds, breathing out for a count of 4, and then keeping that breath out for a count of 4. We want to do this for just a couple of minutes, a minute or two. So breathing in. Reg, will you do it with me? Breathing in.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4. Keep out. 2, 3, 4. Now repeating that in your own count, whether it's 4 or 5 seconds, but equally, will start to get your brain into what we call alpha brainwave activity. It's that kind of relaxed but meditative state where you're alert but you're relaxed, and you're able to now start to bypass the conscious mind and allow the subconscious mind, which is 90% of our abilities, to start to have a voice. And as you start doing that, start with this simple series of questions. Step 3, we've done we've carved out the time, we've done some breathing to get ourselves in that right frame. And step 3 is to start asking these powerful questions. Who am I if I could be anything I want to be? And money and family were not a barrier. What would I like to accomplish if money, family, circumstances were not a barrier? And thirdly, if my time came today and I have to leave this world, what would be the biggest things that I would want to have accomplished so I don't regret those things? Or putting it another way, what 2 or 3 things would make me feel completely crestfallen and feeling deeply resentful and remorseful and cause me the biggest regret? What are those 2 or 3 things? When you ask those questions, continue this slow rhythmic breathing, and then ask those questions again. Because what's going to happen is your conscious mind's going to interrupt and say, "Arey yaar, kya baat hai? Ye zarur nahi hai. Go back and do your practical things. This is all bakwas. You're wasting your time. Just go and live your life and make money."
Oh, I've got no subtitles. I've got no subtitles for that, guys. So
it's all rubbish. Forget about it. Go back and live your life. Make money. Be good. Have a good time. Forget about it. You're a good guy. Your mind's going to want to trick you in every single way to stop you from doing that, because it's uncomfortable to ask those questions and sit. It is. No matter how successful we are, most people can't do that. And it's the one thing we've got to go past. Ask yourself the question, pause, wait, ask your question again. As you continue to breathe and ask the same question, who am I? What is it that I want to accomplish? You'll start to get certain answers, emotions, or feelings show up. As those answers, emotions, or feelings show up, ask yourself this question: what else could this mean? Show me more. And what will happen is your subconscious will be able to start revealing certain elements through imagery or through voice or through feelings or through mental flashes, like movie flashes. And those elements will become keys to allow you to ascertain what you really want to focus more of in your life and what you actually, maybe to your surprise, need to start to let go of, because those things don't serve you anymore. And that's how we can dislodge the things that don't serve us in our life, commercially, professionally, people-wise, relationally, whichever area it is, and you'll start to be able to dislodge those old self-limiting beliefs and paradigms that you had and start to embrace that new concept to refine your existence. And that's how we can start to inject vitamin S spirituality into our life, because we're reconnecting with our
So can I ask you,
consciousness.
Prash, that was really good. I think people who, watching this, should probably rewind and listen to that again, because there's some really powerful questions there. So assuming they've gone through step 1, step 2, step 3, repeat with the breathing, is there any other steps after that?
Once they've gotten a handle of that, they want to, towards the end of the session, they'll want to make notes. Once they've got those notes, you want to be able to start, and this is where a coach or a consultant come in handy. You would share those notes with somebody who you trust, somebody who you regard as a mentor or an advisor or a coach like you or I. And somebody like that can help you to then start to navigate the path from where you currently are to the things that you've written down that you'd like more of, or the things that you want to let go of. Because invariably that self-introspection, which is a core part of spirituality, of course, you notice I didn't say anything about doing rituals, going to church, going to temples. All those things are great. What I'm talking about,
my mum's going to be very upset.
Deeply, those things are great and they should all be done. But unfortunately, a lot of people are living life at the pedestrian level, including our top level executives. They haven't gone to do this deep work inside because it's uncomfortable, or people think they don't need to do it. But of course, as I said, an uncontrolled and unhappy mind is the worst of enemies. So what we're doing here is we're finding ways through that note making, and the next step would then be to work with somebody who can help you to navigate that journey, so you can start to reclaim control of all the elements of our being, meaning our mind, intellect, and our ego, the things that actually show up in the world every day, and the things that are running our existence and our choices every day. So what we're doing is we're reshaping our self-concept. So that next step will be go find somebody who you can work with, revisit that exercise for a shorter time, a half an hour, a week later, or 2 weeks later. That's the beauty of this exercise. You're not going to find your true purpose and dharma necessarily in one session, but to repeat that in a few weeks and do that, you will not believe the amazing discoveries that you will make about yourself, and the amazing insights that allow you to dislodge some old ancient wounds, I call them, Reg, that may have been hidden inside. The disapproving father, that old relationship that you had with somebody, the boss that let you down, anything that you've got, those ancient wounds that you've got going on that may be governing, let's say, 70% of the choices that you make and the results that you get, can now start to be dislodged, and you can start to see success.
Do you believe in
your mind?
You mentioned about past relationships or whatever. Do you believe in regression? Do you believe that there's a link in us to many past relationships? I've had images in the past being in the Egyptian times and being an advisor to someone, and that image keeps popping into my brain.
I do, and I have living proof of this. Brunel University, one of the UK's, Brunel, one of the UK's leading universities. I had the pleasure of having one of Europe's leading past life regression hypnotherapists come and do a session. I still haven't forgotten. I was the president of the University Society. We had 120 plus people in the room. He did a regression hypnosis. 40% of that audience went into a deep trance-like hypnotic state. 6 people in that room started to cry and show emotions during the hypnotic state. 3 of them started speaking, get this, in languages that they've never spoken before.
Wow.
I kid you not. I had a Nigerian person speaking in Mandarin. There was a Slovakian girl speaking in Portuguese, and there was something else. None of them had spoken those languages before, and what they were recounting is incidents from past lives, which afterwards we had a research team take a look at, and the research team who followed up to see if this was all made up, 70% of the stuff they were saying they were able to ascertain. I don't know, 70%, some high degree of the stuff that these guys were coming out with in foreign language, which fortunately other people in the room were able to make notes of and decipher, came out to be accurate. That is to say, past life relationships and connections, as you say, could well be there. and that we have that tie. And I think all of us can relate to it, whether you believe this stuff or not. I think everybody can relate to meeting somebody and you get this instant rapport with them, and you feel like you've got a soul connection with that person. Maybe it's your lover, or maybe you're married and you still meet somebody and you feel like there's that soul connection there. That happens for people.
That's interesting.
We just got to be open to it.
So yeah, I get it. I mean, one day I'll have to experience that fully and hang out with you on another one of those events. But what you're saying in terms of speaking a language suddenly that you weren't aware of is very different to the other talent that you have, which is where I've seen you mimic many different parts, people from different parts of the world with your accents. Yeah, that's different, isn't it? That's nothing to do with regression, is it, Prash?
No, that's just purely a hobby and a talent we have.
Anyway,
maybe on another episode, I might.
We'll leave that one for another episode, shall we? Yeah, we'll leave that one. Now, we're gonna bring this to an end. Again, for those who've been watching to the end, thank you very much. Do hit the like button, leave your comments, share the video if you feel that there's value there. And again, don't forget to reach out to Prash directly. Watch his podcast, go to his website, and he's got some really cool offers right now. We'll make sure the details are in the description area to work on some of those things about audit and other areas where you can get some coaching. I had a whole bunch of questions left, but I think we should do an episode 2 soon. I wanted to ask about the hidden deficiency affecting us all, the 3 golden rules of spiritual success, because these are things that you talk about on the platform, how the S factor can amplify your purpose, meditation exercises. There's a whole bunch of things I had on my list, but we're going to have to save that for another episode, Prash.
Part 2.
Yeah, and thank you very much for your time. It's been enjoyable. It's been enlightening. Some really good questions that you even got me thinking, even I need to watch this video again and basically answer some of those questions. Really powerful. I can see why you've really grown in your career over the last 25 years and why you're in such high demand. And I want to thank you. Thank you very much, and we'll do this again soon.
I appreciate it, Reg. I think it's been a tough life for me, and I'm here. Everything I share is from my own experience. I'm fortunate because even though I was grown in poverty, I lost both my parents. They died. We had health issues, bullied, racism, physical and emotional abuse. It just shaped me as a person, and everything that I experienced in that life of poverty and difficulty growing up for many, many years has shaped the way I am. And I think the powerful forces of gratitude and love, when they're combined properly, especially in a corporate setting, and embracing spirituality in the way that I described for corporates, for business owners, for people who are tuned in like this, there is a healthy synergy that can help you to really raise your business to the next level and do that. And embracing this, and obviously, hopefully you'll replay this, get this. And on that note, Reg, I want to leave everybody with a gift, which is available to all of you. It is a guided meditation to help you with some of the things that we've described and put you in a calm state. Specifically, it's a very unique brain and training revolutionary audio technology that I've used to create a guided meditation where I'm using my voice to help you to reduce your stress, increase your calm and your focus. And using that, it's a 21-minute audio meditation. You can use it daily. It is friendly for everybody, young or old, and it will help you to get into that state of real calm to help you both with the exercises we've described here for your personal introspection, but also helping you set you up for the day ahead and have a most productive and reduced stress day. So that's available at StressToSuccess.co/gift. And Reg, I'm sure you'll have it with everything else, including our productivity for procrastinators course that's coming up as well.
Brilliant. Well, again, really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Prash. Look after yourself, and we'll catch up soon. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Reg. All the best. Bye, everyone.